Por favor, abre a porta do elevador. Eu tô com um pouquinho de medo, mas eu sei que o Senhor cuida de mim. Amém.
In that hustle. Big shout out to SPI, Spotter Low. You know, I'm in the black box. Had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Stay tuned. All that.
I like how little man looked back before he walked out the elevator like he was checking with his angel, like good looking, for reminding me to pray. On my mama, they say Mark Cuban telling big lies, $2 billion lie. Hey, man, you can't be mad if a man got himself to a point where his lie can even be worth $2 billion. He done did something, but it's just some more content on the 7 C's, constant, consistent, continuous content creation campaign. We're going to check out what they talking about with Mark Cuban being a liar. As a matter of fact, the channel that we're reacting to currently, give up that Cree-netted, is Jeremy Orozco, Orozco, Jeremy Orozco. Go check him out.
Mark Cuban lied. How this face became a billionaire. It's all a lie. Maybe this guy started everything and Mark Cuban screwed him over harder than anyone's been screwed in the history of tech, and I'll prove it. What I found is shocking.
All the streaming, everything YouTube does, we started that.
My bad, we're gonna run it back. Here we go. With no further ado, let's see what they say. Mark Cuban been up to.
Mark Cuban lied. How this face became a billionaire. It's all a lie. Maybe this guy started everything and Mark Cuban screwed him over harder than anyone's been screwed in the history of tech, and I'll prove it. What I found is shocking.
All the streaming, everything YouTube does, we started that.
You started that?
It was called AudioNet, and we started in 1995.
We started streaming? Don't be so modest, Mark Cuban. Who was the real tech genius who single-handedly invented streaming?
How much technical savvy was required? How much did you understand, could do yourself?
I did all the technology, and then we hired engineer after engineer after engineer to implement it. And so,
wow,
yeah, from putting together a multicast network to software to just all these different.
Inventors invent. Mark did the technology, and it started with ROI.
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 I thought ROI was return on investment. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it has another ROI. I'm sure ROI could apply to something else in any specific industry, yeah, to be honest.
You know what that stands for?
Return on investment.
Nope. Radio on Internet.
Radio on Internet. ROI. That was a charming fictional moron named Russ Hanneman who invented radio on the Internet. He'll give us insight into the real Mark Cuban. Here's the real Mark Cuban's story of how he invented ROI. I'm not saying the story's real, but Mark Cuban has told this story, repeated it, some version of it for decades.
Then one of my buddies from college, Todd Wagner, sat down with me, and this was in 1995. He was like, you know, there's this whole new thing called the Internet. There's got to be a way we can use this to listen to Indiana basketball. We set up this website called AudioNet, and the next thing you know, video comes along and we turned it into a company called broadcast.com. And so we started what turned out to be the very first streaming company.
No, you didn't. That was Mark's story until 2012 when Chris Jabe did an extremely rare interview.
We'll talk about how Mark Cuban came into the story, but I'm wondering are you ever resentful that people say that Mark Cuban is the founder and completely write you out of the story?
Yeah, of course, there's a little bit of that. It's hard not to, because of the way it sort of ended up, in it being promoted in the media, and because of the way he positioned the story.
That was Cameron Chris Jabe. He started Cameron Audio Networks in 1989. He was the original founder of what would become AudioNet and then Broadcast.com, but his name wasn't on all the press releases, news articles, videos, documentaries, incredible Silicon Valley shows. This smile got all the recognition. Watch.
Of course not, but I do it anyway, because I want it.
You're putting your entire future in the hands of the man who put radio on the internet. I can only assume that he mentioned that to you.
It may have come up.
Oh, this guy? That's the guy?
Yeah, that's the guy.
Does he actually smile like that with his upper and lower teeth at the same time?
The guy is a joke.
How does he even do that?
He's a boorish, pompous, womanizing douchebag.
Chris's name wasn't even on the
Damn, he does do that. I never noticed that. That's difficult to do.
Wikipedia page as a founder until that 2012 interview, until after it. Chris started with broadcasting sports events inside stadiums with these like radio pager things, but says, what about outside of stadiums? He started working on maybe the first satellite radio company, but the internet gets fast in 1994. Real fast, a whole 28.8 kilobytes home modem fast. That's like 0.028 of a megabyte fast. Okay, that's stupid slow. Co-founder Todd Wagner, Mark's lawyer friend, introduces Chris to Mark in late 1994 and
within 10 minutes of me giving him this pitch that I'd given 100 times, Mark said, I'm in, I'll do it. And at that point he gave me a check for $10,000 and said, and on the bottom of that check it said 2% of the company. And at the time I really didn't think anything of it, so I took the check.
Classic Mark. He's the only one on earth with this genius ability.
With Shark Tank, he be wanting 30, 40, 50% for his 10,000. He just switched it up.
I guess the other thing is, like you see on Shark Tank, I can look at any business. I don't care what it is. And in 10 seconds, I know all about the business. And so...
Right. He must be a billionaire from Shark Tank alone. No?
Are you up all time on Shark Tank investments?
Nah, not... Am I up financially?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I've gotten beat.
Really?
A couple.
No. Well, as Russ Hanneman says, it's not always about the money.
You know, one of the things being in the 3 Comma Club has taught me, Richard, is it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about wisdom. Did I lose a B? Close to it. But I bet I gained 2B in wisdom.
So you lost it all?
One of them worked.
One out of 36?
Well, Mark Cuban got this one right. 2, actually. Mark Cuban had a successful computer integration business that he sold to CompuServe before this. He's not an idiot, not a complete idiot. He really had a talent for hooking up computers, installing software, servers, and he knows how to sell BS. A lot of it. Come to think of it, Russ Hanneman isn't a complete moron either.
Start a subscription revenue model?
What? Revenue? No revenue. I'll call you back. What? Why would you go after revenue?
Because to make money?
No. If you show revenue, people will ask how much, and it will never be enough. It's not about how much you earn. It's about what you're worth. And who's worth the most? Companies that lose money.
Probably a coincidence. Anyway, when Broadcast.com sold to Yahoo for about $5.7 billion, they were making negative $16 million on sales of $22 million. Yes, you do the math. Companies that are worth the most lose money. Chris needed more money to lose fast. This was the dot-com boom era. He asked for $1 million from Mark.
They talk about this type of stuff so casually, but I ain't gonna lie, they are currently going over my head. My mama. I am illiterate financially to this degree of discussion.
But Mark only gave him that check for $10K. But remember, at the bottom, it said for 2% of the company. This became a giant problem. Mark wanted his investment non-dilutable. Why?
Things will come back, so we try to be protective in the contract so that you can't just immediately raise money 2 days later. You can't immediately dilute us in other ways, and just,
Now, non-dilutable is smart. Otherwise, an evil investor can just issue new shares of stock and dilute your shares and screw you out of your own company. It's how Mark Zuckerberg screwed over his co-founder, Eduardo Saverin. All you need to do is pump out more shares for yourself and dilute the other founder's shares.
Mark!
Easy.
He's wired in. Sorry? He's wired in.
Is he?
Yes.
You issued 24 million new shares of stock.
You were told that if new investors
How
came
much
along...
were your shares diluted? How much were his?
But Chris says, hold on, hey...
This non-dilutable doesn't make sense. It's not fair to all the other investors.
Mark, it's not really fair if I make your shares non-dilutable because my family has been investing in this for 5 years and all their shares are dilutable.
How do you make one's shares non-dilutable? Because if more people have shares, and like you dilute naturally, I wonder what is the mechanism for those shares to be considered non-dilutable.
They argue about it for a few months, and then Real Audio Player comes out, and Mark says, what?
Mark said, Chris, I really don't need you. You really don't have that much to add. I can pretty much do or get people to do what you're doing. So I was a little bummed, to say the least.
But then Mark says, hey, wait, hold on, just kidding. I actually do need you. Chris had been calling 80 to 100 broadcasters per day from all over the country acquiring streaming rights. Plus, when guys named Mark steal companies, founders sue.
And I'll bet what you hated the most is that they identified me as a co-founder of Facebook, which I am. You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything.
So Mark Cuban has a better idea.
What if I just bought your company?
It's not for sale.
Yes, it is.
Go to hell.
Hey.
I'll call you Turtle.
Thank you, Mark, for that reenactment of investing in a company and then taking it over in a hostile manner. Very believable. The douchebaggery, on point. So Todd, the co-founder lawyer, makes the offer. Chris would receive a paycheck for only $2,500 a month to train the new team, a couple days a week to acquire more broadcasting licenses. Remember, he built relationships by attaining broadcasting rights over the last 5 years. And Chris would get to keep just a fraction of his own company. Chris, was that easy?
It was hard to take 10% of a company that I developed 100% from scratch.
Cuban became the driving force of AudioNet.
Mark overall really wanted to see it as his company.
See, Chris initially went to Mark for funds to build the software that would become Real Audio Player. Well, Chris claims that Real Audio Player launched, and once that happened, all Mark needed was to acquire content, transfer it to a computer, slap it on a website, and people could click to stream with Real Audio Player. That wasn't Mark's story. Who's lying? Mark? Did streaming technology such as Real Audio Player exist?
But was it technology even there?
No, it wasn't at that point, but I figured I could figure it out. And there were ways using WAV files and stuff that you could transmit audio. That had been done for a long time. But actually streaming it over the internet in a more efficient manner, that hadn't been done. So I set up a website, and we called it AudioNet, and then we went to a local radio station here in Dallas, KLIF.
Well, you heard him. The technology wasn't there because
I set up, then immediately transferred it to we called. So you're giving people credit to some extent, I guess.
Mark claims he did the technology. But here's the truth. Real Networks was founded by an ex-Microsoft executive named Rob Glasser in February of 1994. In November of 1994, he filed the patent for streaming for click-to-stream technology. 1994 streaming patent. Hold on, Mark? What do you think about streaming patents?
So we're violating their patent.
At some point, patents are important for innovation, right?
No.
No. I mean, you blow up the whole patent system?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't need it?
Don't need it.
It wasn't necessary for broadcast.com?
No. I mean, look, if patent litigation,
Oh, Mark Cuban, streaming patents would have only been necessary for broadcast.com if you invented streaming. Joking. Mark once explained that even though he was always having to invent new ways of streaming audio and video, he didn't get patents because he thinks they inhibit technology. He's so humble. Real Networks eventually got their patent for actually inventing streaming technology, and on April 3rd of 1995, Real Audio Player was released, a revolutionary free streaming audio player that would be used by more than 85% of streamed content on the internet. Mark, what was the date on the first radio recording you used for streaming? Not the live streaming, but your prototype test.
Using these exact
there they are.
These exact tapes, right? August 10th, KLIF.
Exhibit A, August 10th, 1995. What a coincidence that the first free streaming audio player was released on April 3rd of 1995. And then 4 months later, Mark Cuban was also inventing streaming first. Remember, Mark, you told us streaming didn't exist. Streaming technology didn't exist yet. But here's the thing. Domain registration records show audionet.com wasn't even registered until August 13, 1995. Chris's original
I wonder if that was on GoDaddy.
company became AudioNet in September of 1995, 5 months after Real Audio Player was unveiled. Here's the nail in the coffin. 2 nails. I found 2 Wall Street Journal articles from the late 90s that say Todd Wagner and Mark Cuban launched AudioNet when they, quote, learned about Real Networks, software for streaming audio signals, that was Real Audio Player, over the internet, and decided they would use it to help radio stations put their broadcasts online. But it wasn't until after April 1995 that the two decided to offer radio programs. Proof. The founder name you don't see here or anywhere else is Chris Jabe. After his 2012 interview, Bloomberg did a Mark Cuban documentary. And while Cuban won't acknowledge Chris as a founder, when pressed, co-founder lawyer Todd Wagner acknowledges Chris in the weirdest lawyerly way possible.
But co-founder Todd Wagner does acknowledge Jabe's participation.
He was there for a very brief period of time, and then he went on to the next thing. He owned a slug of equity and did just fine.
AudioNet did better than just fine.
Translation, we screwed him. Chris signed that 10% deal, hardly a slug of equity, but he made a grave mistake. His shares were dilutable. And what do marks do to founders who have shares that are dilutable?
What was Mr. Zuckerberg's ownership share diluted down to?
It wasn't.
What was Peter Thiel's ownership share diluted down to?
It wasn't.
And what was your ownership share diluted down to?
0.03%.
Marks dilute hard. When Broadcast.com sold to Yahoo in 1999 for $5.7 billion, Chris's 10% shares were worth less than 1% of the company. Mark still made about $2 billion, but Chris would never make it to the 3 Comma Club.
I like this painting.
Is it sperm? No, 3 commas. Know what has 3 commas in it, Richard?
A sentence with 2 appositive phrases in it?
No, $1 billion. Yeah, I'm in the 3 Comma Club. You know, you play your cards right, you could be in the 3 Comma Club too, but probably not. But you could be, but probably not.
Chris had less than 1%, but that's still around $50 million, and his whole family that invested in him, they all became millionaires too. Chris is grateful. I personally would have been the most bitter millionaire on earth.
Man, imagine 50 million being a robbery, getting 50 million and not being satisfied because you're supposed to get hundreds of millions or $1 billion. That's crazy. 50 million is a lot of money, though. We'll be Jeter for 50 over here.
But Chris was grateful that Mark took his company to the 3 Comma Club.
Mark overall really wanted to see it as his company. He had made it, gone from really an idea to reality. He never really wanted to acknowledge me as a founder.
But he now gives Chris Jabe full credit for the idea. Listen.
So we would get together and he's like, look, he's got this other guy he knows who's doing this thing with pagers to try to get sports audio transmitted to pagers. And I'm like, no, that's crazy. And I'm like, look, there's got to be a way, this new internet, and I've been playing with the internet. I'm like, there's got to be a way that I can figure out how to, transmit audio and eventually video over the internet so that we can solve that problem.
Oh, wait, that's right. No. Mark gives him 0 credit. Chris was just some guy now with a crazy, stupid idea. And Chris may have started with radio pagers, but he was way, way, way past that point in 94 before he even met Mark Cuban. In Chris's 2012 interview, Andrew, the interviewer, provides proof to Chris that Chris was looking for an internet partner for ROI, radio on internet, on a public forum in June of 1994.
Or America Online, our company has developed a really kick-ass premium service, and we're looking to partner an online services site. Remember when you can go to news groups and put messages like this up?
That is interesting. I do remember that kind of stuff going on. Basically, I was just reaching out to anybody that had a network to figure out a way to grow the vision that we had. This was probably before I even met Mark, I would guess. Wait, what was the date on that?
June 6, 94.
Yeah, that would have been about 3 or 4 months before we even met. So I was just...
Chris doesn't care. He just laughs and is like, oh, yeah, I guess that's proof I was looking to invent radio on internet before I even met Mark Cuban. That's funny because everyone thinks Mark Cuban is the genius who invented radio on internet. Mark Cuban needed the recognition. He needed 3 commas. And he remembers exactly how it happened.
I remember the second I became a billionaire. I was naked, sitting right there, just clicking and refreshing, watching my stock rise. And when it happened, I popped the rod so fast, I went blind for a full minute, nutted all over those cushions. I was the king.
Sorry, that was Russ Hanneman again. I don't even know if he's supposed to be Mark Cuban. Here's Mark Cuban's real story.
And I remember sitting in my house in the second bedroom where I had a PC set up, and it was getting close, right? Because it was going nuts. Hitting F5, the refresh key, right on old. And there it was. I'm sitting like basically naked on this chair.
Is this coincidental, or who said it first, the movie or Mark? Mark or the movie? Come on, this is hard to believe. This is not somebody copying the other person.
Chair, hitting this thing, go boom, 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 until it hit it, and bounced around, did my little billionaire dance song.
That's insane.
It was insane, man.
Is that
it
when
takes
you're super rich? When you're a billionaire?
Yeah.
Of course, Broadcast.com shut down just a few years after Yahoo bought it because it was wildly unprofitable and anyone could stream at that point. In fact, streaming was available before Mark Cuban started his company. Subscribe, the end.
I don't know if he's a liar or, yeah, I guess he caught in a lie, but why or does it even matter? Y'all keep it a Google. Cheated.
Yeah, neighborhood Nip Bustin'. Giving a shout out right now to SPR and Spider Road. Y'all already know what it is. Neighborhood Nip Bustin'. Big shout out to SPR, Spotter Low. You know I'm in the black box. Had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Stay tuned. All that.